Adrian Ellington's fingers slipped behind Maya's neck and opened the hidden clasp of the black diamond necklace she had designed with her own hands. The red silk of her gown burned under the lights. His black suit cut a hard line beside her, and Bianca Vaindoren waited 3 feet away in a white dress so delicate it looked rehearsed for innocence. Then Adrian lifted Maya's signature piece from her skin and fastened it around Bianca's throat, announcing to the room that Bianca was the new face of the Black Diamond collection. The cruelty was not in the diamond. It was in the transfer of identity. Maya did not cry. She touched the empty place at her collarbone, looked at the clasp, and understood with perfect calm that her husband had just mistaken silence for surrender. For 10 years, Adrian had called her private sketches our vision, once they became profitable. For 10 years, he had walked into boardrooms with her designs in his leather folder and walked out with men twice his age calling him a genius. Maya had let the lie live because marriage can make a brilliant woman patient in ways the world never deserves. She had told herself partnership meant standing slightly behind him, even when every cut, every setting, every microscopic angle of light belonged to her mind. But when Bianca lifted her chin and let the black diamonds settle against her white dress, Maya saw the final insult clearly. Adrian was not just replacing a wife. He was trying to put another woman's body between Maya and the name she had earned. "Beautiful, isn't she?" Adrian said, and his voice carried across the launch hall with the polished ease of a man performing ownership. Cameras turned toward Bianca. Luxury editors leaned forward. Investors began to clap because wealth often mistakes confidence for truth. Maya stood still inside that applause, her red gown sharp as a warning no one had learned to read. The Black Diamond collection rose behind them on a 40-foot screen, each necklace, ring, and cuff displayed like captured lightning. And every piece had begun as a line drawn by Maya at 2 in the morning when Adrian was asleep. He had never known how many degrees the stone had to tilt to turn darkness into fire. He had never known why a 1/16-inch shift could ruin the entire mood of a bracelet. He only knew how to stand beneath a logo and pretend the light came from him. Bianca placed one manicured hand over the necklace and whispered something toward Adrian, too soft for the microphones, but not too soft for Maya to read. Triumph made people careless. Adrian took Bianca's hand and faced the audience. "Tonight is about evolution," he said. Black Diamond needed a muse the world could understand. That sentence landed harder than the public touch because Maya heard what he was really saying. Her intelligence had become inconvenient. Her face did not fit the fantasy he wanted to sell. Her decade of work could be renamed, repackaged, and worn by a woman who had never drawn a setting line in her life. Maya lowered her hand from her collarbone. The senior lawyer, near the side wall, avoided her eyes. The quiet assistant froze with a tablet held tight against her chest. A lead journalist sensed the fracture and angled a recorder toward the stage. Maya saw all of it. More importantly, she saw Adrian. Beneath the expensive certainty, there was the old fear, the one he hid under tailored wool and inherited marble. The fear that without Maya, he was only a man with his name on buildings and nothing original inside him. She gave him one last chance to recognize what he had done. He did not take it. He leaned toward the microphone again and thanked Bianca for bringing soul to the collection. Something inside Maya went cold, not broken, cold. She turned from the stage without rushing. Every step of her red gown across the polished floor cut a clean path through the stunned guests. Adrian noticed only when the applause thinned. "Maya," he called, still smiling for the cameras, still believing her pain belonged to him. She paused beside the glass display case holding the original Black Diamond Master Certificate, the document Adrian had once signed because he thought legal language was less important than champagne. Maya looked back at him, her face calm enough to frighten anyone paying attention. "Enjoy the launch," she said. Then she walked toward the private archive, leaving Bianca glittering under stolen diamonds and Adrian standing beneath a collection he no longer understood how to keep. Maya entered the private archive without looking back, and the room seemed to recognize her faster than the people outside ever had. Behind the locked glass wall, the original Black Diamond documents rested under museum-grade lighting at a careful 68 degrees Fahrenheit, protected like sacred objects while the woman who created them had just been stripped in public. The irony was almost elegant. Adrian had built an empire on the assumption that beauty belonged to whoever could buy the room. But Maya had learned years ago that luxury only obeyed paperwork when the lights went out. She placed her palm against the access panel. The door released. Inside, the noise of applause from the launch hall softened into a distant pressure against the walls, and Maya finally allowed herself one slow breath, not as weakness, but as measurement. Every great cut began with restraint. Every flawless setting required pressure applied in the right place. She stepped toward the central display case, where the original IP registration portfolio sat beside the master licensing certificates, both bound in black leather with a narrow red seal across the spine. That was her divorce before the divorce. Not a ring on a plate. Not a public scene. A legal blade wrapped in velvet. The senior lawyer followed her in with careful steps, his face pale with professional caution. "Mrs. Ellington," he said, keeping his voice low, "if you want to contest the launch language, we can file in the morning." Maya looked at him. "No, we file before midnight." The sentence altered the temperature of the room. He understood then that she was not asking to be comforted. She was asking whether the weapon had been sharpened properly. Maya opened the portfolio and turned past the glossy renderings, past the gemstone sourcing records, past the press-approved biographies where Adrian had reduced her to creative influence. Her finger stopped on the clause he had signed 3 years earlier during a private funding round, when he was too impatient to read anything. That did not flatter him. Misuse of authorship. Any public assignment of creative origin to an unauthorized third party would trigger immediate revocation of display, manufacture, sale, and licensing privileges across the Black Diamond line. Adrian had called it harmless legal padding. Maya had called it insurance. Tonight, it became prophecy. The quiet assistant appeared at the archive door, eyes fixed on the empty place at Maya's throat. She did not ask if Maya was all right, which made Maya respect her more. "The press team is asking whether you'll return to the stage," the assistant said. Maya closed the file with one hand. "Tell them I'm reviewing authenticity." Outside, Adrian's voice rose again through the speakers, praising Bianca's instinct for elegance. And for the first time, Maya did not feel wounded by the lie. She felt embarrassed for him. He was still trying to sell a crown while standing on a floor he had not noticed cracking. The senior lawyer placed a tablet before her, showing the emergency revocation protocol. Several fields were already prepared because Maya had built this system long before heartbreak gave her permission to use it. Flagship stores in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, London, Paris, Milan, Dubai, and Hong Kong. Manufacturing partners, auction houses, insurance carriers, private client showrooms within 5 miles of the launch venue. Every channel that touched Black Diamond could be frozen by one verified signature and a timestamp. Maya reviewed each line without hurry. Pain wanted speed. Discipline demanded accuracy. Once this is scheduled, the lawyer warned, there is no soft version. It will accuse Ellington Luxury Group of unauthorized authorship misuse. Maya looked through the glass wall toward the stage, where Bianca tilted her head so photographers could catch the stolen necklace from a better angle. "Then use the accurate version," Maya said. The lawyer's hand hovered over the confirmation screen. Maya took the tablet from him. Her own signature would matter more than his permission. She signed her full name, Maya Ellington, not as Adrian's wife, not as the woman behind his myth, but as the soul originating. Designer and rights holder of the collection his company had just misused before witnesses. The tablet displayed the scheduled activation time, 12 a.m. Eastern. Maya handed it back. "Send the notices at 11:58, she said. "Let him finish his speech." Then she turned toward the archive mirror, studied the red gown, the bare collarbone, and the woman Adrian thought he had emptied. He had not taken her power. He had only removed the last ornament covering it. At 11:58, while Adrian was still bathing in applause, Maya's legal notices left the archive like invisible diamonds cutting through glass. The senior lawyer watched the transmission log populate one jurisdiction at a time, New York first, then California, then London, Paris, Milan, Dubai, Hong Kong, and every private client showroom tied to the Black Diamond line. Maya had not built a collection. She had built a legal ecosystem Adrian never understood. Each ring carried a design patent. Each necklace carried a certificate of authenticity linked to her originating sketches. Each campaign photograph required a display license that could be withdrawn if creative authorship was publicly misassigned. Adrian had spent years calling those protections excessive because men like him only feared locks when they were on doors they wanted to enter. Maya placed locks around the truth. Now she turned the key. The quiet assistant stood beside the archive desk, staring at the outgoing notices with the tense stillness of someone witnessing history before anyone outside knew it had begun. "All recipients confirmed," she said. Maya nodded once. "Prepare the evidence folder for the board." Beyond the glass, Adrian's image filled the event monitors. He stood beside Bianca, his black suit immaculate, one hand resting near her lower back with the entitlement of a man presenting a product he thought he owned. Bianca kept adjusting the necklace so the black diamonds caught more light against her white dress, unaware that every photograph became evidence with a timestamp. Maya studied the screen as if evaluating a flawed setting. Too much pressure in the wrong place. Too much confidence around a weak joint. Adrian invited the lead luxury editor to ask a question, and the editor, sensing blood beneath silk, asked whether Maya would remain creative director after Bianca's public introduction. Adrian gave the answer Maya needed. "Maya has always been part of the Ellington story," he said, smoothing ownership into kindness. "But Black Diamond is moving into a new era, and Bianca represents the soul of that future." The senior lawyer looked at Maya. Maya did not look away from the monitor. "Save that clip." The first counter-move was no longer private. It had become a recorded admission. Adrian thought he was replacing her in front of the world, but every sentence narrowed his defense. He had named an unauthorized third party as the soul of a collection whose soul was protected by contract. He had displayed the flagship necklace on Bianca after removing it from the originating designer. He had converted humiliation into a licensing breach in front of cameras from 3 continents. Maya's pain did not disappear. It changed profession. It became audit, sequence, proof. At 11:59, the senior lawyer's tablet showed the pre-midnight compliance alerts arriving from retailers. One Manhattan flagship requested clarification. A Paris showroom froze its display orders. A Milan buyer asked whether all black diamond pieces should be removed from view pending legal review. The assistant read the messages with widened eyes. Maya's expression stayed calm. "Answer only with the certificate chain," she said. No emotion. That was the discipline Adrian had mistaken for weakness. He had always needed an audience to feel powerful. Maya needed accuracy. He needed Bianca shining beside him to quiet the suspicion that his genius was borrowed. Maya needed one clause, one record, one signature. In the launch hall, Adrian lifted a champagne flute and promised that Black Diamond would become the most profitable luxury line in Ellington history. The room applauded because the room had not received the truth yet. Maya turned from the monitor and opened the physical IP registration portfolio. Her red gown reflected faintly in the polished black table and the empty space at her collarbone no longer looked like a wound. It looked like a cleared surface. At 12 seconds before midnight, she placed her finger on the final confirmation panel. The senior lawyer lowered his voice. "Once the revocation activates, his company loses the right to sell, display, manufacture, advertise, or license the collection until settlement or court order." Maya looked toward the stage one last time. Adrian was smiling at Bianca as if he had solved the problem of being overshadowed by brilliance. "Then let him meet the company he stole from," Maya said. Midnight arrived. Maya confirmed the revocation with her full legal signature, and across the world, the Black Diamond Empire Adrian had claimed began to freeze under her name. You see, in the world of high jewelry, the most expensive thing is not the diamond. It is the name on the certificate of authenticity. Adrian believed power was theatrical. He believed if he could remove a necklace from Maya's skin and place it on Bianca's throat under enough lights, the world would accept the transfer as truth. That is the psychology of an insecure man with money. He does not simply want admiration. He wants witnesses. He wants a room full of people to applaud the lie before anyone studies the paperwork. But humiliation only works when the victim still needs permission from the person humiliating her. Maya had stopped needing permission the moment he touched the clasp. "Tell me, what do you think breaks a brilliant woman more, betrayal or the realization that her love had been protecting a mediocre man from being exposed?" At 12:03 a.m., Maya left the launch venue through the private service corridor, still wearing the vibrant red gown Adrian had tried to turn into a costume of defeat. The night outside was cold enough to turn breath pale, 41 degrees Fahrenheit against bare shoulders, but she did not fold into herself. She crossed the rear entrance without a driver, without a publicist, without Adrian's security detail trailing her like borrowed importance. A black car waited by the curb because the quiet assistant had understood the assignment without needing praise. Maya entered the back seat with the IP registration portfolio on her lap. "Take me to the studio," she said. The driver pulled away from the glittering venue, and within minutes, the towers of Manhattan became broken reflections in the car window. 2 miles from the launch, Adrian was probably still telling wealthy strangers that Black Diamond had entered a new era. 3 miles from the launch, retailers were already reading revocation notices. 4 miles from the launch, Maya finally looked at her own reflection and saw the empty place on her neck, not as loss, but as evidence. He had taken the symbol. She still held the source. The car stopped in front of a narrow limestone building on a quiet side street, the kind of address old collectors preferred because it did not beg to be photographed. This was not Ellington Luxury Group. There was no marble lobby with Adrian's name carved into the wall. There was no receptionist trained to say his title like a prayer. The studio occupied the top floor, behind an unmarked black door and a freight elevator that smelled faintly of metal, cedar, and wax. Maya unlocked it herself. The room inside was dark, except for a single drafting lamp over a long table. Along one wall stood trays of unset stones, wax models, antique engraving tools, and hand-drawn sketches that had never passed through Adrian's office. For the first time that night, she was completely alone. No cameras, no applause, no Bianca wearing stolen brilliance. Maya placed the IP registration portfolio on the table and rested both hands on either side of it. The silence did not comfort her. It told the truth. She had loved a man who studied her talent the way thieves study doors. She had mistaken his dependence for intimacy. She had spent 10 years giving him language, designs, taste, credibility, and the discipline to appear visionary before rooms that would have ignored him without her. The realization did not bring tears. It brought order. She reached behind her neck, touched the place where the necklace had been, and lowered her hand. "No more ghost work," she said. Then the room changed purpose. Maya turned on the drafting lamp, opened a locked drawer, and removed a red leather folder stamped with her private mark, a small black diamond inside a flame-shaped setting. Inside were the first incorporation documents for Ellington Maya House, prepared months earlier but never filed because some part of her had still wanted the marriage to survive. That part of her had died on stage. The founder remained. She placed the documents beside the original sketches, then opened her laptop and began sending invitations to master jewelers, ethical diamond suppliers, private collectors, and luxury editors who had spent years quietly knowing the truth. Her message was short. The black diamond rights have returned to their originating designer. A new house begins now. By 12:30, the first reply arrived from a private collector in Palm Beach asking for a founder's appointment. By 12:40, a Paris buyer requested verification of her independent certificate chain. By 1 a.m., the senior lawyer sent confirmation that Adrian's company had received emergency notice of global licensing suspension. Maya read it once, then closed the message. Her revenge was not to chase Adrian. Her revenge was to become unreachable at the exact moment he finally needed her. By 1:20 a.m., Maya's studio no longer felt like a refuge. It felt like headquarters. She changed out of the vibrant red gown only long enough to place it over the back of a chair, not as a discarded costume, but as evidence of the night she stopped lending her brilliance to a man who treated ownership like performance. Under the drafting lamp, she wore a tailored red silk blouse and black trousers, her hands steady above the same table where she had once designed pieces Adrian later presented as his own. The room was quiet, but not empty. It held 10 years of stolen credit, 27 protected design files for private supplier relationships Adrian did not know existed, and one woman who had finally stopped negotiating with her own erasure. Maya opened the first new folder on her laptop and typed the house name into the incorporation forms. Ellington Maya House. She kept Ellington not for Adrian, but because the name had become a battlefield, and she refused to leave it as territory he had conquered. Her first call went to the master jeweler who had cut her original black diamonds by hand for a private prototype 5 years earlier. He did not ask for gossip. He asked one question. Are the designs under your control now? Maya looked at the IP registration portfolio beside her. They always were. By 2 a.m., he had agreed to reserve his atelier for her first independent collection. By 2:15, an ethical diamond supplier in Nevada confirmed a sealed inventory of rare stones that Adrian's buyers had never been allowed to touch. By 2:30, a private collector from Palm Beach requested the first appointment slot, not with Ellington Luxury Group, not with Adrian, but with Maya. She wrote every name down by hand, because handwriting forced truth into the body. Each line became a brick. Each agreement became a wall. Each wall became a house Adrian could not enter. Her phone began lighting up with Adrian's name at 2:40, then 2:43, then 2:49. She turned the screen face down. A man who removed a necklace in public did not get private access to the woman who made it valuable. The quiet assistant arrived with garment bags, fresh coffee, and a stack of printed retailer responses. Maya accepted the documents, not the comfort. How bad is it? She asked. The assistant laid the pages across the table. Stores are freezing displays. London wants written proof of chain of title. Paris is asking whether Bianca's campaign images are unauthorized. New York has pulled the collection from the main case. Maya scanned the papers, and for the first time since the stage, something almost like warmth crossed her face. Not joy, confirmation. Adrian's empire had been built to shine outward, but its internal wiring had always run through Maya. Now she was redirecting the current. By 3 a.m., she drafted the first announcement for Ellington Maya House with surgical restraint. No accusation, no begging, no wounded wife language for tabloids to chew into spectacle. The statement named her as originating designer, rights holder, and independent founder. It confirmed that future black diamond works would be authenticated only through her certificate. Chain. It invited private clients to verify provenance directly. Make it colder, Maya told the assistant. The assistant revised one sentence. Maya read it and nodded. Across town, Adrian was leaving frantic messages that began with commands and slowly turned into requests. Maya did not answer. She was too busy choosing the first stone for her rebirth. From a velvet tray, she lifted an unset black diamond no larger than half an inch, dark at the center but alive at every edge. Adrian had always wanted diamonds to prove status. Maya understood something older and sharper. A gemstone did not become powerful because a billionaire wore it beside a logo. It became powerful because someone with vision knew where to cut. At dawn, as pale light reached the studio windows, Maya signed the final supplier agreement, sealed the first founder's appointment list, and placed the chosen stone at the center of a blank sketch page. Start with the crown setting, she said. This time, no one stands in front of my name. By 8 a.m., the luxury market had begun doing what powerful people fear most, recalculating value without asking permission. In New York, the main black diamond display case at Ellington Luxury Group's flagship store sat empty beneath glass polished for buyers who would never be allowed to touch the pieces that morning. In Los Angeles, a private showroom manager ordered every campaign photograph of Bianca removed from the wall until legal review concluded. In Paris, a fashion buyer sent 3 words that traveled faster than any press release: verify Maya's certificates. Adrian still believed he could control the story because he controlled the building, the logo, and the public relations team, but the jewelry world did not survive on logos. It survived on provenance. Without clean provenance, a $10 million necklace became a liability under velvet. Maya understood that better than anyone. She stood inside her studio with the first light stretching across the drafting table, reviewing the authentication chain for every protected black diamond design. The quiet assistant placed 3 printed media requests beside her coffee. Maya did not reach for them. Collectors first, she said. That was the difference between Adrian's hunger and Maya's discipline. Adrian wanted headlines before substance. Maya wanted substance so undeniable that headlines would have to follow. By 9:15, the first private collector arrived through the unmarked entrance, wearing no visible logo and carrying the caution of someone who had built wealth by noticing what other people missed. Maya greeted the collector without apology, her red silk blouse catching the morning light like a controlled flame. On the table between them sat the original sketches, the IP registrations, the licensing certificates, and one unset black diamond in a crown setting so precise it seemed to hold darkness upright. Is Ellington Luxury Group still authorized to sell the collection? The collector asked. Maya turned one certificate toward the visitor. Not after midnight. The answer did not need drama. It had weight. Within an hour, the collector requested founder access to Maya's first independent series and offered to pause all Ellington purchases until the ownership dispute settled. By 10:30, two luxury editors asked for direct interviews, not with Adrian's communications department, but with Maya. By noon, a respected auction house notified clients that black diamond pieces required reauthentication through the originating rights holder before resale consideration. Adrian had always measured power by how many people entered a room when he spoke. Maya measured power by how many institutions changed behavior without her raising her voice. She instructed the assistant to release one statement at 12:15 p.m., clean and cold enough to cut marble. It named her as originating designer and intellectual property rights holder. It confirmed that all future authentication, licensing, and design verification would run through Ellington Maya House. It did not mention Bianca. It did not insult Adrian. It simply removed oxygen from the lie. Across the city, Adrian's team tried to respond with glamour, but glamour could not answer chain of title. Bianca posted a photograph of herself wearing the necklace from the night before, and within minutes, luxury. Editors began asking whether she had modeled unauthorized intellectual property. She deleted the photograph. The deletion became its own confession. Maya did not watch the comments. She was in the back of the studio, working beside the master jeweler as he examined the new stone under magnification. The pavilion angle is aggressive, he said. It will either swallow light or make it return sharper. Maya looked through the lens and adjusted the sketch by less than 1/8 of an inch. Then we make it return sharper. That was how she moved now, not away from pressure, but through it. By late afternoon, Ellington Maya House had a waiting list of collectors from Palm Beach, Manhattan, London, and Geneva, all requesting private viewings within the week. Retailers that once treated Maya as Adrian's elegant shadow now addressed her by title. Founder, rights holder, creative director. The words arrived late, but they arrived correctly. Maya pinned the first signed founder agreement beside the blank sketch page, then drew the opening line of her new collection. It was not a copy of what Adrian lost. It was brighter, colder, and more dangerous in its restraint. When the quiet assistant told her Adrian had called 11 times in 1 hour, Maya did not look up. Let him talk to the stores, she said. They know who owns the light now. By 6 p.m., Adrian Ellington's flagship store on Madison Avenue no longer looked like a temple of luxury. It looked like a crime scene without the tape. The marble floors still gleamed, the glass cases still reflected chandeliers, and the sales associates still stood in perfect black uniforms. But the center displays were empty. Every black diamond piece had been removed under legal audit, leaving pale velvet impressions where millions of dollars used to sit. Adrian arrived through the private entrance in his black suit, jaw tight, phone pressed in one hand, and the first thing he noticed was not the missing jewels. It was the silence. Stores built to flatter billionaires were never silent unless money had become afraid. The compliance officer met him near the main salon with a folder held close to the chest. We cannot display, sell, ship, photograph, insure, or transfer any black diamond inventory until rights are verified. Adrian stared at the empty case. Put them back. The compliance officer did not move. That was when his authority began to feel decorative. For years, Adrian had confused obedience with loyalty and loyalty with ownership. People had obeyed him because Maya's designs made his commands profitable. Now the profit was contaminated, and every person who used to lean toward his voice had begun leaning toward the paperwork instead. His phone lit up again with a board call, then an investor call, then a message from the private bank requesting immediate risk review on all credit lines secured against projected black diamond revenue. He answered the bank first because fear always knows which door matters. His voice came out thinner than he expected. This is a misunderstanding, he said. The banker on the line did not argue. That was worse. He simply stated that pending authentication disputes could affect collateral valuation, insurance coverage, and international licensing forecasts. Adrian gripped the edge of the glass case hard enough to pale his knuckles. Maya cannot freeze an entire division. The banker paused before answering. According to the certificates, she already has. Across the showroom, Bianca entered in a white coat over a white dress, expecting cameras, sympathy, and perhaps a chance to convert scandal into mystique. Instead, the sales associates looked away. A luxury editor who had praised her the night before turned toward the exit as if proximity had become professionally dangerous. Bianca touched the borrowed necklace at her throat, but she was not wearing it anymore. The piece had been surrendered to legal review before sunrise. Without it, her victory looked rented. She approached Adrian and whispered that her agency had received calls from Paris and Milan asking whether she knowingly modeled unauthorized intellectual property. Adrian did not comfort her. He barely looked at her. Bianca had been useful when she proved he could replace Maya. Now she proved he had misjudged the value of the woman he tried to erase. "Handle your people," he said. Her face hardened. "They are handling me." The sentence landed between them like a receipt. By 7:30, the board had assembled in the executive conference room 30 floors above the store, where Adrian's name was carved into black stone behind the chair he usually occupied with theatrical ease. Tonight, he remained standing. The board chairman asked for a timeline of creative authorization. The senior counsel asked why Bianca had been publicly named as the soul of a collection registered to Maya's certificate chain. The investor representative asked whether Adrian had knowingly exposed the company to multi-market licensing claims. No one raised a voice. No one needed to. Quiet accountability has a way of making arrogance sound childish. Adrian tried to describe the necklace transfer as symbolic branding. He tried to say Maya had always been part of a shared house vision. He tried to turn theft into marketing language, but every phrase became weaker when placed beside the clause he had signed. His hand shook when he lifted the document. Not dramatically, not visibly enough for a camera, just enough for the board chairman to stop looking at his face and start looking at his fingers. Downstairs, staff removed Bianca's campaign images from digital screens. In London, a retailer canceled the launch window. In Paris, a fashion house withdrew her invitation to a private dinner. In Milan, a buyer removed her from a styling presentation before her name could poison the room. In New York, the lead journalist published one line that did more damage than any insult. "The face of Black Diamond may not own the right to wear it." Adrian read the headline in the conference room and lost the next sentence halfway through it. For the first time, the room did not rush to help him finish. He looked toward the window, beyond the city lights, toward the few miles where Maya's studio waited outside his reach. He had taken the necklace from her neck to prove he held power. Now every locked case, every frozen shipment, every unanswered call proved the opposite. He owned the building. Maya owned the brilliance that made people enter it. The summons did not come from Adrian. It came from the institutions he could no longer charm. By the next afternoon, behind the Global Luxury Summit's main auditorium, a private legal conference room had been prepared with frosted glass walls, a 12-foot black table, and enough silent witnesses to make performance useless. Maya arrived first, wearing a vibrant red tailored dress that looked less like evening wear now and more like authority made visible. The original IP registration portfolio rested in front of her. The licensing certificates lay beside it in clean order. No jewelry sat at her throat except a narrow red gold collar she had designed that morning, unfinished on purpose, a reminder that her future was already in progress. Adrian entered 7 minutes late in the same kind of black suit that once made rooms turn toward him, but now the fabric seemed to carry weight instead of power. His face was composed, yet his voice failed him on the first greeting. He cleared his throat and tried again. "Maya, we need to resolve this privately." She looked at the senior lawyer. "Begin the record." That was when Adrian understood she had not come as his wife. She had come as the rights holder. Bianca followed him in wearing a white dress under a pale coat, her posture rigid, her eyes scanning the room for anyone still willing to treat her like a prize. No one did. The Paris fashion buyer had already withdrawn from her campaign. The Milan showroom had removed her images from its client board. The New York luxury editor sat near the glass wall with a closed notebook, waiting for facts instead of glamour. Bianca touched her bare neck, where the stolen necklace had been for one night and a scandal forever. Adrian did not offer her a chair. That small abandonment told Maya everything about the value Bianca had truly held. She had not been loved. She had been used as a costume for Adrian's insecurity, and now even the costume had become expensive to keep. The senior counsel read the breach summary in a low voice. Unauthorized creative reassignment. Public display on an unauthorized third party. Misuse of authorship. Suspension of display, sale, manufacture, advertising, and licensing privileges. Each phrase landed, with the precision of a stone being set into its final prongs. Adrian folded his hands on the table, but one thumb kept pressing against the other until the skin blanched. "The company carries my name," he said. "Your name is on the doors," Maya answered. "Mine is on the certificates." The room stayed still. Adrian leaned forward, trying to pull warmth into his voice like an old tool he no longer knew how to use. He spoke of legacy, shareholders, employees, public perception, shared history, and the damage a prolonged dispute could do to both of them. He made the mistake of saying both. Maya turned one page of the IP registration portfolio. "You damaged yourself when you removed my work from my body and put it on a woman you could control." Bianca's lips tightened, but she did not speak. She had learned, too late, that a borrowed crown becomes evidence when the queen owns the mine. Adrian's composure thinned. "I was promoting the collection." Maya looked directly at him. "No. You were promoting the fantasy that brilliance becomes yours if you stand close enough to it." The board chairman shifted slightly. Adrian's eyes flickered toward the witnesses, and there it was, the wound beneath the empire. Not heartbreak, not regret, but exposure. He had always feared being seen without Maya's mind surrounding him. He had not replaced her because Bianca was more powerful. He had replaced her because Bianca made him feel taller. Maya let the silence sharpen before she delivered the truth he had spent a decade outrunning. "You didn't want a muse, Adrian. You wanted someone less brilliant standing beside you, so no one would notice you were never the genius." The sentence did not need volume. It removed the architecture of his life. Adrian's mouth opened, but the reply did not form. His hand moved toward the certificates, then stopped because even reaching for them looked ridiculous. The senior lawyer slid a settlement term sheet across the table. Maya's terms were simple. Ellington Luxury Group would cease all black diamond activity until a full audit ended. Adrian would publicly correct authorship. Bianca's campaign would be withdrawn worldwide. Ellington Maya House would retain independent authentication authority and all future licensing control. Adrian stared at the page as if numbers might rescue him from language. "You are taking my empire," he said, and for the first time, there was no command inside the words. Maya closed the IP registration portfolio. "No, Adrian. I am taking back the part you never built." Bianca rose first, not dramatically, just with the stiffness of someone realizing the room had no use for her. Adrian did not follow. He remained at the table, surrounded by lawyers, buyers, and the quiet proof that wealth without authorship was only furniture. Maya stood, lifted the red gold collar box from beside her papers, and turned toward the auditorium where the summit was about to begin. Behind her, Adrian finally understood the difference between losing a wife and losing the woman who made the world believe he was extraordinary. Freedom is like a rare gemstone. It requires immense pressure to form, and once it is yours, no billionaire can buy it back. Betrayal has a price, but not always the price the betrayer expects. Adrian thought the cost would fall on Maya. Humiliation, loneliness, a bare throat under cameras, a room full of people mistaking spectacle for truth. But betrayal reveals architecture. It shows who built the house, who merely lived inside it, and who thought applause could replace foundation. The deepest wound was never the necklace. It was the discovery that her love had been acting as Adrian's disguise. She had softened his emptiness, translated his ambition into elegance, and let the world believe his confidence came from genius instead of access to hers. Tell me, when a woman finally stops protecting a man from the truth about himself, is that revenge, or is it justice returning to its owner? 3 weeks later, the Global Luxury Summit opened its main hall to an audience that no longer whispered Maya's name as an attachment to Adrian's. They said it first. They said it with caution, then respect, then anticipation. The auditorium rose in tiers of cream leather and dark walnut, filled with luxury editors, private collectors, fashion buyers, investors, and jewelers who understood that. Reputation could shift faster than diamonds under the right light. Maya stood behind the side curtain in a new red gown, deeper and more brilliant than the one Adrian had tried to turn into a costume of defeat. This gown did not ask to be seen. It commanded sight. At her throat rested the finished red-gold collar from her studio, set with a black diamond cut so sharply that even the darkness inside it seemed disciplined. The quiet assistant stood nearby with the founder's portfolio pressed against her chest, but Maya no longer needed anyone to carry proof of who she was. The proof was walking on stage with her. When the summit host introduced her as the independent founder of Ellington Maya House, the applause did not arrive like pity. It arrived like recognition finally catching up to fact. Maya stepped into the light with calm shoulders and a steady face, every inch of her presence contradicting the woman Adrian had expected to vanish after midnight. Behind her, the massive screen displayed her first independent collection. Crown settings, black diamonds, red gold architecture, certificates bearing her full name, and private appointments already reserved across Manhattan, Palm Beach, London, Paris, and Geneva. Then the screen shifted. Adrian's flagship stores appeared in a global audit montage, each glass door marked closed for legal audit, each empty display case reflecting the consequence of mistaking another person's brilliance for property. No one cheered at the image. They did not need to. Silence, when it belongs to accountability, can be more devastating than noise. Adrian was not in the front row. Bianca was not near any camera. Their absence had become part of the design. Maya looked out across the room, not searching for either of them, not needing apology, not asking the world to witness her pain again. She had already turned pain into structure, structure into ownership, and ownership into a house with her name on the door. The lead journalist raised a hand and asked what defined the future of her brand. Maya touched the red gold collar lightly, not the way she had touched her bare throat that night, but the way an artist confirms the final setting. Is secure. Authenticity, she said, and no woman disappearing behind a man who needs her work to feel powerful. The room held the sentence as if it were a rare stone. Outside, the city moved with its usual hunger, but Maya was no longer moving through it as someone's hidden engine. She had become the house, the certificate, the signature, the cut. And every diamond that left her studio from that day forward carried the one thing Adrian could never steal again: her name. This story is a fictional narrative created for entertainment, reflection, and educational purposes. Any resemblance to real people, places, or events is purely coincidental.